Hello and welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for the pod, and we definitely need to change that name because I am still not on board with it at all, not having it at all. Joined by Omar for this week's pod. Dolan sends his apologies, cannot make this week, all falling apart actually because the producer, Adam, can't make it tonight either. So we have got John Inslee, aka AVFC Kick Geek, behind the scenes. So absolutely anything could happen on this show tonight. Watch out for decoy intros and outros because John Inslee is at the wheel. This show is brought to you by Luke Roper. If you use the code TVV20, you'll get 20% off most things on the Luke Roper shop. Come on then, Omar, let's get it over and done with the Watford chat. I'm trying to erase it from my memory, but it's still lurking around in there and we've got to cover it. Neil and myself did a post-match point, but I'm interested to get your thoughts. And to being honest, I was at the game, but I might as well have not been there at certain points because I did have a bit too much to drink.
Well, I didn't have too much to drink because I don't drink, so that's the first thing. I also watched the game back again with fresh eyes just to try and take a different perspective. Because when you watch the game live, obviously you get emotional a little bit, and you sort of not always thinking with a clear head in terms of what's going on. But fair to say the first half was diabolical. It just didn't work and basically cost us the game. I thought second half we were much better, especially the first sort of 10, 15 minutes, especially with Ramsey. I thought Ramsey added an energy to our team, a drive to our team, trying to make things happen. And it just linked up. It sort of became that link player between midfield and the wingers and the forward and Danny Ings as well. And just, basically alleviated the problems in the first half. But then we sort of didn't score. We had a few opportunities where, could have done better, and it didn't quite manage to do anything. And then obviously sucker blow out of nowhere from Watford with that cracking goal. People love scoring worldies against us, don't they? And then sort of, it did knock us a bit. And then it was sort of the last 5-10 minutes we went again. But I didn't think we were that bad second half. But for me, the biggest problem was, and it's not necessarily a midfield issue. I've seen a lot of people saying it's just a midfield issue. I think it was the combination of Dino's starting lineup and a combination of the players itself, and maybe the pre-season hindering us a little bit. Let's face it, Ashley Young and Al-Ghazi on the wings is probably our third choice wing partnership, probably, thinking about it. And it showed really in that front four. They were playing as a front four. Bundia was quite high up, a bit like what Barkley was like last year, but they just didn't press with any sort of intensity. And what ended up happening was, because our defence was quite deep, obviously to combat the pace of Sarr, Seema and Dennis, I mean, there was a massive gap between the forward players and the defence, and the midfield had this massive area to cover. And you saw that with the first goal, where the ball comes across. We don't really close it down. The front four players aren't really doing much. And it ends up in a situation where McGinn has to come across and try and cover Target. Target has obviously had a terrible first half and got subbed off. But it was just these massive gaps, and Watford just exploited it. And our defence was deep, and there was massive gaps between defence and midfield. And Cameron McGinn couldn't work back. And yes, I mean, I'm not 100% sold on the Cameron McGinn as a two, although I think it can work in certain games, as we saw with Chelsea and Spurs last year. Let's not forget we won both those games with those two in midfield. So it's not like it doesn't work at all. But I just think the tactics were wrong, and then the players just weren't at the races. Target really has in the pre-season, that's shown. The front four haven't worked together, and they're not. Actually, as much as I love Ashley Young on the left wing, and it, a bit nostalgia, and it felt good seeing him there. He's not a left winger anymore. Our guys in the right wing, again, we can see it as fans. As soon as we saw our guys in the right wing, we're like, this isn't going to end well. He likes to cut in. He likes to take shots or crosses from that cutting in position on the left, and on the right, you just sort of lose that. And neither him or Young are excellent at retaining the ball, which is obviously a big factor this year that the coaching team are trying to improve with the addition of the wingers. And then obviously you saw the improvement with Traore and Bailey, you and Neil talked about Bailey and how impressive he was, in Traore as well. And you saw the difference it made in that second half. But yeah, I mean, the first half cost us at the end of the day. And I saw Troy Deeney on TalkSport talking about it, and he said he was really disappointed in Villa. He said he went to see us play.
I bet he wasn't too disappointed.
No, he wasn't. No, but I mean, he was speaking quite frankly, I thought, which was quite fair of him. He said he went to see Villa at a pre-season friendly against Walsall, which surprised me. Obviously, he must be a closet Villa fan going to pre-season friendlies. But he said he was quite impressed. But he said, the lack of Ollie Watkins, he thought, was the main reason why.
Massive.
Because Danny Ings he's a link up player. He likes to drop deep and link up with the striker or link up with the wide players and sort of create little opportunities for himself to shoot. And he was just chasing shadows all game, and he's not that type of player to sort of lead the line. And I think it cost us that sort of starting lineup. I think in hindsight, hindsight's a wonderful thing. If we'd seen maybe Bundy on the right and maybe another midfielder in there, someone like Ramsey or whoever, then we may have seen a different team. But it's difficult with Dino because Bailey has just come in. Traore hasn't been fit. He's had many games, so it wasn't like there was a massive amount of choices available to him. So it's one of those you sort of, it's one of those games. Newly promoted team, fans up for it. It's always going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's a bit annoying because we definitely were undercooked. I mean, Greg told me on the 1874 podcast today, he said Watford have been back in pre-season since the 25th of June with the majority of their squad there. So, they're fit. They're ready for that game, although they did have an awful pre-season. By all accounts, they saved their performance for the real thing against Villa. We got players there who started that have played one pre-season game. We're bringing people on who haven't played a game at all. It's really, really difficult. I don't think the team selection helped. Like you said, as soon as I saw Algarve in the right wing, I was like, not sure about that. I think I can think of one game off the top of my head against West Brom where I think he was playing from the right, where he had a really, really good game. But in the Premier League, certainly, I think his best games have been on the left. Ashley Young hasn't played left wing for maybe 4 or 5 years. He is a full-back now, so playing him on the wing, you would have thought might have helped us against Saar, but for some reason, it just didn't at all, and he absolutely destroyed us down that side. Targett seems to be a player that takes a while to get fit. I think he had that in his first season, didn't he, where he took a while to get up to speed. And I think last season, the gap obviously wasn't so big between the end of the previous season and the new season. He was kind of ready. Didn't feel like he was ready at all. I mean, it's not his fault. He gets picked if he's not fully fit. He's out there and he's on a hiding to nothing against someone like Ismail Assar because he did give him a really torrid time. People are saying the midfield is the problem, and the central midfield. I look back at it now and think, I'm not sure that is right because, like you said, I saw those two central midfielders and a very similar back four against Chelsea at Villa Park on the last game of the season. And they were brilliant defensively, absolutely brilliant, but it was shambolic against Watford. Memories of the last time we were at Vicarage Road and 3-0 down, okay, we pulled 2 back this time, but it wasn't dissimilar to that rotten performance around Christmas time at Watford of the season. We nearly went down. So there's some worrying things in there. Some encouragement towards the end, although I think Watford had kind of shut up shop a little bit, and getting a penalty at the end of the game, it does make it look a bit closer than it was. But I'm still confident that Watford are going to be a team that's probably going to go down, and we've lost to them. Norwich lost to Liverpool, perhaps being undercooked. But having a team like Liverpool, when you're not fully fit, you're probably going to lose that game anyway. So you don't feel like you've lost anything. I think Daniel Farke said something along those lines. We've lost a game there where I think that's a game we want to be taking 3 points from. That's a game where we need to take some if we're to have a good season. So from that perspective, it's a little bit annoying.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we saw it last season in the games against Burnley, Sheffield United, Newcastle stick out as a few examples of where we didn't do as well as we should have done. And I think, that you're right there with the Chelsea comparison. I do think with these two, Nakamba and McGinn, I think one of the problems was when we had the ball, obviously we had sort of 60-odd% possession. Number of passes was really high. We just, they're not in that kind of, weren't going anywhere. And I think that's where, where we're playing against Chelsea and Tottenham, where we're trying to counter and they're trying to break up play and then spring from there. They're good players to have. But I think when you're trying to dictate the play and you're trying to play those balls in between the lines to Buendia or Ings, then obviously they're not the right type of players because neither McGinn or Nakamba possess the passing ability to do that. And that's, I suppose, is one thing where we've struggled with the last couple of seasons is being able to break teams down when we have the ball. We've been very much a counter-attacking team, and that's where we won a lot of our games last season. So again, we'll talk about Newcastle in a minute. They're probably a similar kind of proposition for us in terms of, we're probably going to have, again, a lot of the ball. And do we go with the same midfield pairing? Or we try and someone like Louise or Ramsey, who are a bit more progressive with the ball?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm talking a little bit like I've lost heart. Obviously, it's the first game, but you can't dress it up. It was bad. Dean Smith came out and said so himself. I'm sure by the time we get to the Newcastle preview, I'll be absolutely up there thinking that we're going to win it 5-0 or something. But yeah, it was just really disappointing, especially being back in the away end and having such a great day.
Yeah.
I mean, my record away from home is dismal. If I'm going to an away game, you may as well go home. It's utterly pointless. And if you pair me up with Dolan in the away end as well, then it really is Kearns. Because honestly, I don't think me and him.
Why did you go?
Why
did you go?
Because I
Why
want
are
to
you going?
go, Omar.
Don't care.
These things are there to be broken.
You've got to sacrifice for the good, for the greater good, mate.
I won't be a Barrow. There you go.
I don't think anyone will they?
Well, no tickets on sale. No tickets on sale at the moment. So yeah,
I know. Although everyone's been asking about them. I can't believe Villa away support is tremendous, isn't it? Like everyone's like buzzing to get to Barrow. I'm like
650 spaces. There's nowhere near enough. There's nothing Barrow can do. They've got a small ground, but that's absolutely nowhere near enough. There's going to be some people probably who haven't, apart from obviously the enforced break, haven't missed away games that they've been able to go to for years, and they simply won't be able to go because only 650 odd people can go. So that will be a shame. I'm trying to think back to that Watford game now, and just wasn't very good. I think. Do you just write it off?
No, I think. Look, we talked about it on I think the pod last week, and I think there was we were all enthusiastic about the season and ambitious and optimistic, and we were thinking we can finish top 8, whatever. And I think long term we've got the ability to do it. But let's not make the bones about it. We've had a really disruptive pre-season. We've had Terry leave, we've had Richard O'Kelly leave a couple of days before. We've had Bundia injured, Traore injured. We've had players coming in late. Louise has just come this week. We've had obviously the saga with what's his name, the man who will not be named, and then Bailey and Ings both coming in very late as well. We haven't really. I was expecting us to have a tetchy start, but I suppose we're lucky in some respects because we've got 3 winnable games. The first one, we could maybe if the game went on another 5-6 minutes, we could have got something out of it, but it just wasn't good enough. And I think we obviously have to rectify that against Newcastle. And again, I think we should expect it to be not as fluid as we hope it will be when the front four are firing and playing well together. Bailey, Ings, Watkins, and Buendia. I think probably be the front four, first choice front four, but. Give them some time, let them play together, get used to it. It's always going to be one of those seasons of transition for us, I think. Again, I hate to say it because obviously we're trying to push for Europe, but I think the owners are. Yeah, I think the owners are realistic though, in that they want us to finish, I imagine, on a similar points tally to last season, and maybe add a few more points, and if that gets us to top 8, which would have done in previous seasons, to top 7, then great. But I think definitely next year they want to get Europe. And I think this season's always going to be difficult with Grealish leaving. So it will be an up and down season. And then I imagine we'll hit some form and we'll find our feet and then put a run of results together. That's my thinking anyway. Whether that happens in reality, we'll see. But I mean, what do you think? Do you reckon Dina will come under a bit of pressure? I see a little bit on social media. Obviously, you can't judge everything on social media because it's a minority of fans. But you do see a little bit of, not fans turning as such, but just grumbling a little bit, obviously, because we've had a bad year, really, calendar year so far in terms of results. It hasn't been great since the turn of the year.
I don't know. If we were to get off to a really bad start, then obviously it would come under a little bit of scrutiny. I think I was just thinking while you were talking that this could end up being the opposite of last season, where you have to a bit of a ropey start, but then you have a good second half of the season. It'd be ironic if we finished around the same kind of points, but we start the season badly and end it well, and see what the difference in feeling would be compared to last year. That's something I can certainly see happening. And you spoke about all the stuff over pre-season. I still think the biggest thing on Saturday was Ollie Watkins not playing, and I think that didn't help Danny Ings. Danny Ings has been playing in the front 2 for the last 2-3 years now at Southampton. To be playing on his own, it didn't feel like we really knew how to service him either. There was some strange balls fired into him high at certain points in the game, which I didn't really understand at all. We haven't had time to work on those things. I think if Watkins had been there, the lads are used to Watkins up top and what he brings and what he does. That would have enabled Ings to drop off a little bit. Buendia tried it, didn't really work. Nothing really fell for him at all. He had a bad game for his first game, but he's definitely undercooked himself. If Watkins had been there, I do think it would be a different game. And if you just, it was the first point of the game, we'd come under any pressure and we conceded. It's a different game if you don't do that as well. But Watkins takes the pressure off because he makes the ball stick. He wins the ball high up the pitch. We just didn't win the ball back. And when we did have it, it was too slow.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've seen a lot of talk amongst Villa fans about whether we can play this 4-4-2 system that's been mooted.
I think we can.
I think so. I mean, well, I don't know because everyone's saying, I've seen so many people dismiss it out of hand, saying Watkins and Ings can't play together. We need to drop one of them. That's just we just have to have an extra midfielder. But let's face it, we haven't really seen them play together. So how can we know? Because Ings has primarily played in the last few seasons, like you say, in a sort of a 4-4-2 formation, and not really a 4-4-2 formation, more like a 4-4-1-1 formation in Southampton, or even sometimes a sort of a 2-3-1 formation where he's played from the left sometimes as well. And Che Adams has been his main strike partner, who's like a worse version of Ollie Watkins, I would say, in terms of attributes. And
yeah, that's fair.
I think
B-Tech Ollie Watkins.
Yeah, B-Tech. Well, yeah. Well, maybe Southampton fans are watching. I doubt it. But yeah, I think that's fair. But Ollie Watkins is a top class player, and he adds so much to our team. And you can see on Saturday result against Watford how much we rely on him. But I do think, they've had 45 minutes together against some random Italian team that name I can't even remember, where it was like Salernitana, whatever. Yeah, I'm not going to pronounce.
Begin with this.
Why we're going to try and pronounce it, but they played 45 minutes together. It was, it wasn't really an intense match, and they'd linked up fairly well together. It wasn't, perfect, but they were doing some good 1-2s and stuff like that. But that was it. That's all they've had. They need a bit of time together to play, and I think when you see that sort of 4-4-1-1 formation with Ings dropping deep and being that link-up player, which is his skill set. That's what he's good at. He's like a total footballer. He's a very good footballer. He likes to drop deep. He likes to pick up the scraps. He likes to come in off the left and shoot. And he likes to play in off a striker and the wingers. And then I think you'll see a different team, especially with Bailey and Buendia on the left and right. Bailey and Buendia both are excellent pressers. Watkins, we know, is the best presser in the league in terms of a forward player. Ings himself is excellent on that side of things. And I think you'll see less pressure on the midfield, because they'll be able to win the ball high back, up. And if they don't win the ball high up the pitch, then it will allow the midfield to get themselves organised and the defence to get themselves organised, rather than what you saw on Saturday, which was, the front four players not really committing to that press, which meant that they were high up the pitch and the defence didn't really settle in terms of positioning. That's where you sort of target, end up in sort of like a midfield position, trying to win a ball in the air, and that's that kind of thing. Having Watkins there does alleviate it. I suppose it does bring the issue there, and I'm sure some viewers and Villa fans are thinking, do we rely too much on Watkins? We relied so much on Grealish. Do we rely too much to Watkins to play these sort of aimless balls down the channel and try and get him to win these balls and then try and play from high at the pitch? And at some point, if we're going to progress, Dean Smith needs to impose his style on Villa, because when you have someone like Jack Grealish in the team, who's obviously a world-class player, why wouldn't you utilize that? Why wouldn't you play everything through him? Because he's obviously levels above anyone else. But now we don't have him. We've got a more rounded team. We need to find a more rounded way of playing. So it can't just be Tyrone Mings launch into Ollie Watkins, and Ollie Watkins doing his miracle work that he does, which is sort of bring it down from nowhere, fend off two players and then knock it off, and then we build from there. That will work in some games, but not all the games. Games like Newcastle and Watford, we do need to start imposing ourselves in our game. We do need to start. People like Buendia and Bailey need to link up play, and I think that that's why we bought them. They are these excellent. Two of the things that they do well is retain possession, and we've seen that. I think Greg wrote about it in the Athletic in terms of they're looking for wingers who can keep hold of the ball, and too many plays broke down in the final third last season. They weren't happy about it, and that's why they brought these guys in. But we need to see that coming into play at some stage, and it will take a few games, I'm sure. But if it doesn't happen, sort of November, December time, and we're still struggling, then I can see a bit of pressure on Dean to start getting results. Definitely.
I mean, on the formation, I don't even think it's a discussion. I simply think we have to play 4-footer. I don't see it as being that different to what we were doing last season, to be honest, either, because when Barkley was playing at the start of the season, when we were doing well, I hasten to add, he was basically a second striker. So we did it. And it worked last season. Yes, Jack Grealish was playing left hand side. Leon Bailey's going to be there now. He's essentially, to me, going to be our go-to guy on the ball. From what I saw on Saturday in his brief cameo, he's going to be the go-to guy. I simply think you have to play 4-footer, because you don't spend 30 million on Danny Ings and move him out wide and not play him. He's in the team every week. Watkins has had a great season last year. Again, Dean Smith said he isn't going to play wide. So he's having to play up front. So that tells me straight away we've got to play two up front. And then you've got Leon Bailey and Buendia, again, who've cost big money. Buendia's the record signing, isn't he? And Bailey not that far off. Again, they've got to play. So 4-4-2 is the only formation that Aston Villa can play, in my opinion.
Yeah,
None of the others work. When everyone's fit, None of the other formations fit those 4 players in. So you will be playing 4-4-2.
Yeah, no, I think I think that's the plan. Dino talked about sort of a short striker role, which is what Ings has basically done. A sort of phrase I haven't really heard before, but it basically means that link-up player. And the only other formation I can see working is maybe 3-5-2 with Twanzebe coming in. But then again, you lose those wingers because you're probably going to play Target and Cash, and Bailey and Radir. But it's a squad game at the end of the day. We've finally got that squad depth that we wanted. So if players aren't performing, then you've got the likes of Traore, you've got Ramsey, you've got Wesley if he's still here, El Ghazi. You've got these players there, Sanson, which we haven't really talked about. I would like to make a point about him in a second.
Mm-hmm.
We've got all these players there in the background, and hopefully they're raising their game because there's a bit of competition, and it shouldn't be a case of the same 11 players play, but. Definitely those front 4. I think it isn't a panic buy. Danny Ings isn't a panic buy.
He's been identified.
Yeah, Dino said, they knew early on that Jack was going. All this talk about Jack thinking about whether he should stay is nonsense for me. He decided back in April, May time before the Euros that he wanted to go, and we had to wait to the Euros and him to come back on holiday to get it done. And they wanted to wait to get these deals over the line. And Danny Ings had been identified in time. You don't. Our team, Rob McKenzie and Johan Lang, don't do things half measures. They plan everything. They look at attributes, look at the stats. They'll have a number of different players for each position that they're targeting, and it may not always be the top target, but there will be a plan in place. So I don't believe that. So I think there's been some thought behind it in terms of formation we'll play, and maybe we'll play a 4-3-3 sometimes as well.
Yeah, the odd game. But I'm saying in general,
in general, yeah. But Bundia can play as a 10, who can play as an 8 as well. Let's not forget that. But I think generally those are the players that will play. I suppose the point for discussion is the midfield. I think that's the bone of contention for everyone. And I'm not saying the midfield 2 will definitely work every game. Some games it will work, but there definitely needs to be an improvement there. I think more so for games like Newcastle and Watford and those kinds of games where we need to impose ourselves. I think we need a different type of player. And I guess we'll see that. Morgan Sanson, we've talked about off air, haven't we? If I saw a few people say, if we'd signed him this summer, like we were planning to, we were planning to buy him this summer rather than January, but we saw an opportunity to buy him, then I don't think we'd see the half the furore we've seen in terms of buying a midfielder, because people think, oh, maybe he's the answer. Is he the answer?
Almost been written off a little bit.
He has, and it's not fair, really. I don't think, because he's come in January, he's come into a struggling team without Jack playing, where we weren't getting results. He's played 290 minutes or something like that. It's not enough to judge a player. He's been injured. When he'll be back, I have no idea. He is more of a number 8, to be fair, but I don't know. I see a lot of people talking about. What are your thoughts? Everyone seems to want this big 6'1+, tall, physical midfielder, and Dino's never really played with that type of midfielder.
No.
And yet we're being linked with people like James Ward-Prowse and Harry Winks. So that makes me think, actually, that's not
big 6'4" midfielders.
Yeah, exactly.
Harry
So maybe that's
Ward.
not. I don't really see us. We've been linked with Decore and people. Sar's not really, that kind of big physical presence. He's more more of a not a box to box player, but still very forward thinking. So it makes me think that actually maybe we want someone for these games against like Watford and Newcastle. We want someone to be able to impose themselves, dictate the tempo, have a bit of energy to get about the pitch, but play that Louise role, basically that hybrid of Louise and Akamba role, where they can sort of intercept passes, they can do the defensive work, but then they can do those progressive passes and set the tempo of the team and sort of break from midfield, which I think at the moment that's probably an area we're struggling with.
Yeah, the thing is, if we had the Louise from the back end of the 1920 start of 2021 season, I wouldn't be saying we particularly need a midfielder. I think his drop in form towards the end of the season was quite alarming. I actually think if he'd have been playing against Watford, it would have been a bit better. I think for that game, it's not a game you want Nakamba. That's a game you want Louise in there, because he knows how to pass a football. So that would have been an upgrade on most of what I saw on Saturday, although I did have my beer goggles on. But for the bigger games, we've seen Nakamba come in isn't a bad thing. It works. So I think having a cross between those two players would be helpful. And I do in general think that we're quite a small side. If you look at us compared to other Premier League teams, there's not much physical presence in there. There's not much height, which I think sometimes can be a problem, as we've seen when we go away to places like Burnley, Crystal Palace last season. We get turned over when we shouldn't do. And I think that comes down to physicality, in my opinion. But then we also know that it's James Ward-Prowse that they want, because we've been after him all summer. But even if he comes, when he comes in, or if he, I've said when, which is completely stupid of me because now people will be saying, oh, he said he's coming. Not what I'm saying at all. We definitely want him. We've been after him all summer. Southampton want 50 million for him. I guess if they're offer somewhere near that they might get him, but I can't see us going to that price because it is an awful lot of money, I think, for James Ward-Prowse. But we've identified him as the player, and we're already talking about players that aren't going to be in the team. And I get that you need a squad. It's difficult to see where he fits in some respects as well.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's a fair point. We've got Ramsey, we've got McGinn, we've got Nakamba, we've got Louise, we've got Sanson. There's five midfielders there. You've got Chukwuemeka as well, who's obviously more of maybe an 8 or a 10 type of player. But it's another thing. We want to give these youth players a chance to progress and do well and get opportunities. Bringing another player will obviously stifle that as well. So Ramsey, obviously almost changed the game really on Saturday in terms of his presence, and he's bulked up as well. He's a very physical player. I
don't mind Ramsey.
Yeah, he looks really. And obviously, there's he's a young player. There's work to be done. End product is an issue, but I'm sure that will come. But do we stifle that progression as well? Do we send them out on loan? Do we want them to be playing first team football? There's all these types of conversations that I'm sure the recruitment team will be having because spending 50 million on James Ward-Prowse is a lot of money. It's not something I would do personally. I think 35 million is probably the maximum I'd go at. But then that's me trying to think logically. I think if we lose a few games, will we just go for it? I don't know. I don't know if they think like that. But we've got to be careful. There's value to be had there. It's definitely a buyer's market because clubs are looking for money to come in. But I don't want us spending 50 million on James Ward-Prowse. I'll be honest, because as much as I love James Ward-Prowse, and I think he's a perfect player. The way we operate. We look at. Apart from Danny Ings is the exception where we've looked for someone who can make an immediate impact because obviously Jack's gone. We need someone who's
big Tom Heaton, wasn't it, that one?
Yeah, exactly. It's like Premier League ready who can make an immediate impact, who's playing at the top of their game already. Every other player we sign is signed with a view of their growth in terms of as a player, but also their growth in terms of value to the team and to the squad. So if we're buying James Ward-Prowse for 50 million. How much higher can he go, really? I'm not really sure because we know what James Ward-Prowse is all about. He's 26 years old, I think, from memory. He's not really going to go that much further than 50 million pounds. So if we sign him, that's 50 million pounds that we're spending, and we're banking that. That's what we're not going to get much of that back, I don't think, in 4 or 5 years' time when he's 29 years old. If we decide to sell him, you probably get half of that if you're lucky, if he has a good few years. So that's why I'm not 100% sure. We probably would. It's probably one of our first choice targets, but I don't. I can't.
We've definitely been after him all summer. Definitely.
Yeah, but I just can't see us spending something like that 50 million, and I don't want us to be honest, because people say, "Oh, it's not our money. Why do you care?" Well, that's the attitude I had under Randy Lerner, and we saw what happened. We want to build. These owners want to build a sustainable football club. They want to be able to progress, build our revenue base. And we've got the Jack money in, but with the way financial fair play works, we've got 3 years to spend that. But if we spend all that money in 3 years, then our revenues don't grow. Then we're screwed in 3 years' time because then our wage to turnover ratio is going to be massive. Our revenues aren't going to match up to how much we're spending, and then we're going to be screwed again with losses, and we're going to be in the same cycle again. In 3 years' time, we're going to be. Then they're going to have to cut back spending, and it's going to be Randy Lerner all over again. And I don't think these owners want to do that. That's why they've got these. There's a reason why we got Langer and McKenzie in. This is what they do.
It's their specialty.
They buy players. They build value in these players through getting the right coaching team in place and progressing their careers. And then they look to sell academy prospects or players and then sort of reinvest that money on a bit like the Leicester model, really. Buy players who have similar attributes for half the money or a quarter of the money, and then build again, and then you continue to build like that and continue to get better like that. Whether it works or not, I guess we'll see. So that's why I just can't see us spending 50 million on James Ward-Prowse. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, I've just if anyone saw fear on my face, and I accidentally knocked my phone whilst you were talking, and my bank app came up, and it's a good job I'm not in charge of the transfers because I was absolutely appalled by the balance that I just saw in my bank account.
You make a fortune off the Villa View, don't you, mate? Apparently.
Oh, absolutely flying, carving it up. I am on the jollies, with the Villa View bank card. What I would say is, I get the 50 million thing. If Villa are going to spend 50 million pounds on someone. It's going to sound wrong the way I'm wording it, but I know what I mean, and I'm hoping you do too. It's going to be on someone like Leon Bailey, who is someone I would say technically should be a little bit out of our reach at the moment. That's a statement signing. If we're going to sign a central midfielder for £50 million, it's going to be someone of that ilk rather than James Ward-Prowse, in my opinion.
I agree.
Did you see what I mean?
I completely agree. Completely agree. I'm not saying we won't. I'm not saying we.
Wow, how they got him?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we won't ever spend 50 million pounds, but it's got to be the right player. It's got to be. You're completely right. It's got to be that player who's going to take us to the next level. And James Ward-Prowse, as much as we do need that kind of player, you know, if the difference is between us getting 8th or 7th, or 10th or 7th, or 10th or 8th, then I don't think 50 million pounds worth it. I generally don't. I think there's probably better value out there in Europe, and that's probably what they're looking at. Southampton, obviously, Southampton said, oh, he's not for sale. And then they said they want 50 million. So obviously he is for sale, and the owners want money. I think later, let's see what happens later on in the market. I think, I can't imagine James Ward-Prowse is that happy about being, their best players being sold again and the money not being reinvested. He's obviously mates with Matt Targett as well, which helps Villa. Yeah. So let's see what happens later on in the window when Southampton owners are maybe a little bit desperate for money. Then again, are they signing their own death warrant almost by selling him, because then it's almost like guaranteeing relegation for him. So it's a difficult one. I said it for a few weeks now. I just can't see that transfer happening because Southampton already sold players to get revenue in. Why would they then sell James Ward-Prowse? They don't really need to sell him. And if they do sell him, they're going to sell him for big money. And who's going to pay that? I just can't see anyone paying that.
No. Southampton got the vibe of the side that when we went down, when we lost the core of our side, that they've really got that vibe to me. Southampton, if they lose Ward-Prowse, I think that does seal their death warrant. Like you said, I'm just trying to think I'm trying to explain a bit more what I meant before. Let's say Chelsea signed someone and they suddenly made Kovacic available, and we got Kovacic. I think people will be looking at that and thinking, wow, that's big. How Villa managed to attract him. It's going to take something like that for us to spend 50 million, I think.
I'll be honest, I'd rather spend 50 million on Basuma. I'll be honest.
Yeah, but again, I don't think that would be one where you go, whoa, I wouldn't have expected Villa to be able to get him. I don't think people would be surprised by that. I think he's going to be someone.
I would be. I'll be honest. I think he's destined for top 4 or 5 team. Maybe I've got it wrong, but
I've not seen enough of him. But I still like, Brighton to Villa, Southampton to Villa now. I don't think people would be like, oh, I'm surprised they've made that move. I think it would take someone who would be a big surprise.
Yeah.
For us to spend that 50 million. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. I could be absolutely wrong.
I think you're right. We've been linked with players like Hermoso from Atletico Madrid, and I reckon that is the next stage we're looking at. These players who are playing for Champions League sides, who someone like Arsenal would get, with Thomas Partey last season, or Pepe to less. Obviously, they wasted money on Pepe. He's still a good player, but 70 million is obviously twice too much as they pay for him. But these types of players who are like playing for players, teams like Lille, Atletico Madrid, these types of players who are the next sort of, the teams like Liverpool, Man United, or those types of players would maybe buy in a few years' time. They're the types of players I think we're going to look at next. Exactly. And that's the kind of player I want, because that from now on, we've got that squad now. The only way we add to that squad is buying those players who are like Leon Bailey, basically, as you said, that kind of level where you say, oh, he's going to Villa. That's a surprise. I thought we'd be going to
Liverpool. The general football public would have been shocked by Bailey going to Villa.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
I'll admit, when I first heard of it, I was thinking, that sounds a little bit too good to be true, to be honest. But obviously, it went through. That's what we need, because we've got such financial power now compared to teams in other countries. You've got to be taking advantage of that. So for me, if something exceptional came up in midfield, you would spend 50 million. Someone just popped into my head. He's out for 6 weeks, I think, at the moment. But, if we could go to get Renato Sanchez, for example, he'd be a massive upgrade.
Perfect, yeah. Perfect type of player,
Spend 50 million on him, and I think people think, wow, that is a big signing. Villa mean business. That's what I want to say. Don't get me wrong. If we sign James Ward-Prowse, I'll be pleased, because the more good footballers you get in the building, the better. But going in and spending 50 million on Renato Sanchez, it probably wouldn't even take 50 million, to be honest. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see us do, like we did with Sanson a little bit. You take advantage of the fact that those teams in those countries, they haven't got the financial muscle that we've got, and their leagues haven't got the muscle that the Premier League's got. People want to play in the Premier League. We've now got the leeway to go and do things like that, and we're building in the right way that players want to join us. The signings we make now, I want to see them be that stature, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree, completely agree. And we're going about this completely the right way in terms of what we're doing. I think, numerous times we've heard come out of the club, if there's a deal to be done and it's good value, we'll do it. And I think that's exactly the right way to approach it. You don't want to panic yourself into buying players, because you end up in a situation where you have players, what we did under Tony Giard with buying Codger, McCormack, Hogan, these just stockpiling strikers, you're just sort of trying to fix the problem, fight fires, and it's just not the right way to go about it. You need to be a bit more strategic about it. And, I think the owners, we've seen, the owners keep saying, they've got a plan in mind. And Dean Smith said we're 18 months behind where Jack wanted to be, as an example. And I think that just means Europe. I don't think it means Champions League. I don't think they want us to be Champions League in 18 months. But
wouldn't say no.
I wouldn't mind. No, of course, yeah, I'll take it right now. Of course I would. But I think the owners have in mind that next season is when they definitely want to be in Europe. They want to get into Europe.
Yeah.
And that's the way they think. You see what they've done, what Wes Edens has done at Milwaukee Bucks. There's a. It's not always going to be perfect. No plan is perfect. You can't always get everything right in the plan. There will be deviations from the plan. But there's got to be a general framework that you're working towards, and I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at Man U for an example. I know they've won the first game. Maybe I'm getting a bit giddy with their first game, but people have questioned what they were doing. Have they built a bit slowly? But long term, what they've been doing, it might actually work. They look at they look like they're doing all the right things now, and they perhaps will be challengers this year. It takes time, and don't get me wrong, we fell far. Yeah, Man U were falling far from where they were really, and they're working their way back up. But Aston Villa fell loads of echelons where they should be. So it's a long way back. Things have changed a little bit. Losing Grealish, I'm sure, wasn't really in the plan. So there's things they've got to do now to maybe try and get back to the level that they thought they were going to be at the start of this season. Maybe we're not quite there at the moment. Who knows? But I do think we'll get one more in. I'd be very, very surprised if we got to the end of the window and there wasn't one more player through the door. And I'd be shocked if it wasn't a midfielder, to be honest, because to me that's the only place we really need to strengthen squad-wise.
Yeah, I'll be disappointed. I'll be honest if we don't get midfielder. All this, I'm talking about giving the youngsters a chance, and I do think that. And if we don't get one in, so be it. But there was value, and we go on with what we've got, and it's not ideal, but there's enough there in the team to. You want to give Chukwuemeka and Ramsey and players like that a chance, but it will be like
that'll be an Barra.
Yeah, they'll get a chance again then. But it'll be an 8 out of 10 window for me. It's a bit like we've had numerous 8 out of 10 windows where we've needed an extra striker or an attacking midfield or whatever, and it'll be similar to that where we've managed to fix a lot of the problems, but not quite all the problems. And it's very difficult to get a 10 out of 10 window. I think in the Premier League, it's very difficult because. The players got to be available. The club's got to be willing to sell. The players got to be willing to go. There's a lot of factors involved in a transfer. For it to all fit together, it can be difficult. But I imagine we'll see something happen late on. It's a bit too quiet. Obviously, we saw so much happening in that 1 week where we did the transfer pod a couple of weeks ago, and I think everyone got sort of heightened expectations a little bit. There was going to be loads of activity, and then Twanzebe come in a week later and nothing's really happened since then. So I understand a bit of frustration, but we just got to be patient and wait for the right moment to strike. I'm sure there's targets in mind, and I guess we'll see. There's still January window. We've managed to do a bit of business in January last time, so who knows what will happen. There is AFCON and stuff like that as well in the horizon.
I've completely forgotten about that until the other day.
Yeah, so that will be an issue for us as well. Although I did see some random Twitter account talking about how Wesley and Louise are going to be missing for AFCON, but I don't think the person understood geography.
I was going to say that doesn't fit in with my geography knowledge. I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but that doesn't fit in.
But I mean,
school.
Traore, Nakamba, obviously two players that come straight to mind. Trezeguet's injured, so it doesn't really matter. So, there is going to be issues there potentially that we'll need to address. So, I guess we'll see. I'm not gonna lose my mind right now until the window's closed. That's
it's not like we've done no business.
No.
Remember under O'Neill where we went into a season and we only had 2 centre backs and one of those was Curtis Davies, whose shoulder was falling off.
Yeah.
We've been in worse positions going into the window.
Dunn and Collins in the last couple of days, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. We've been in worse positions.
Even last season, people are. I saw this report, the tweet that came out. I think someone spoke to Ashley Priest from Birmingham Mail and said they said they were quite happy with what they've got, but then they said that last season. I mean, everyone wanted an attacking midfielder.
It's just the company line.
Exactly. And then the next day we got Ross Barkley in. So, and January as well, Morgan Sanson, they said, we're not going to be doing any business in January. And then they got Morgan Sanson in. So, they'll strike if the deal's there, if something happens. These agents will be talking to everyone. They'll be trying to get their players. Yeah, so they'll contact Villa and be like, oh, this player's available. Suddenly, something's happened, and there's plenty of clubs out there that need money as well. So, I think just be patient and see what happens before losing your mind about transfers.
Yeah, we all know James Ward-Prowse's agent is as well. He's not adverse to getting a deal done, as we found out this summer. So, yeah, you never know. You never know. Let's move away from transfers. Let's get our minds back and look at Newcastle then. How good is it going to be in a full Villa Park, Omar?
I cannot wait. Honestly, I'm absolutely buzzing. Like, I haven't been to Villa Park since I can't remember, because I didn't manage to go to the Tottenham game, which was obviously the last time most people were at Villa Park.
Yeah, that's all.
Generally can't remember. It might have been the Watford game.
Was the cup game, the Leicester semi after the Spurs?
Leicester semi, yeah, Leicester semi was before.
I think it was after.
I can't remember now. I can't remember. Well, it was before us losing to them and in the league anyway. But it's been so long. I didn't get to go to the Chelsea game, unfortunately. And I'm so excited. Go walking up the Holt steps, that feeling with all the fans there, just the buzz of being at a home game. It's just something we've all missed, something we're all buzzing to go to. And we saw the weekend how much home crowds helped. I think 7 out of 9 teams won at home. So yeah, I'm buzzing. Even turning 36 on Friday isn't going to dampen my spirits. So I'm buzzing, mate. I cannot wait.
Just beating me to the old 36. I must be doing a podcast with someone who's older than me, actually. Doesn't happen very often nowadays.
Thanks, mate. I think we're too old for this game. Well, anyway.
It's a young man's game now. It's definitely a young man's game. Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable to be back. And to be back 2 weeks running as well, I quite like. Because I went to the Chelsea game. Obviously, I was very fortunate to be there, and then I was lucky enough to go to the Youth Cup final was it day after? I think it was the day after, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As well, so very, very, very fortunate human being to be at both those events. But it wasn't the same, and it gave you a taste of it, and then it was like, yeah, you're not coming again for three months. Yeah. So it's gonna be great to go to 2 weeks running 2 home games, 2 full houses at Villa Park. And I got to give credit to the away faithful at the weekend, because even when we were 3-0 down, I didn't hear any negativity. The crowd didn't turn at all. I really liked that, because that's something that's happened quite a lot in the past. I think everyone was just so grateful to be back. So I hope that's something that we can utilise moving forward. Maybe even the man that sits in front of me has cheered up a little bit, because I tell you what, he's been a grumpy so-and-so through the years. So maybe
where'd you sit again?
I don't want to say now in case the bloke watches the show. K5, row 5.
K4. I might see you there.
Yeah, you'll definitely see me. You'll definitely see me. It's going to be great. My dad couldn't go to the last game of the Youth Cup final, so being back with my dad, watching him struggle up the whole end steps again, that's going to be a treat for me. But yeah, it's going to be good to be back. Got a mate coming with his kid, bringing his kid to his first game as well, sitting next to me, because the Lee who sits next to me was lucky enough. I'm lucky enough that he gave his season tickets to me. So yeah, I've got one of my mates coming with his kid for the first time, so that's going to be a good experience.
What's your pre-match ritual then, when you go to a home game?
Really boring, mate. I'm absolutely no fun on a home game. I know why I'm a right laugh on a home game. Really boring.
It's not
get there early, because my dad gets paranoid about parking.
All right.
Slowly walk to the seat. Be in the ground ridiculously early. Maybe mingle on the concourse for a bit. Sit at the ground.
Take photos of your fans, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Go home.
Sign a few autographs.
No autographs on a match day. Yeah, I'm quite simple for the home games. Away games, I go nuts, which was to my detriment on Saturday. Home games, I'm quite, I keep it chilled, keep it calm.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like to get in and watch the warm up. I like to get my chips and curry sauce in.
With my dad, I don't think I've ever missed a warm up. I have absolutely no chance. I haven't even missed a goalkeeper's warm up. I don't think we get there so bloody early.
Really, parking's a nightmare though, isn't it? I'm coming on the train.
Even worse as well, I think, this time.
Really, I saw Matt Kendrick looking for parking tips earlier on today, and
I saw.
Just seemed apparently it's a bit of a nightmare these days. But yeah, I mean that's all part of it, isn't it? It's all part.
Who cares?
That rush to the ground, walking in, the smell of the food. It just brings back memories for me going with my dad and things like that. It's just cannot wait. It's just that feeling when you walk out into the stand up a Holt and you see the pitch, just that buzz, buzzing, and hopefully we see a win on Saturday.
Yeah, we will. See, yeah, we will. Absolutely, we will. Although I will say, after Sarr's murdering of Matt Target, I hope he's a little bit more fit this week if he is playing, because St. Maximin won't be, is it?
No. Would you? How would you look to change the team then? Would you change it at all? Would you bring Ashley Young on the left?
Bailey's playing, I think.
You reckon?
I think you've got to.
What about Watkins? Do you think he'll be fit?
Yeah, I'm gonna say. I don't know anything, but I'm gonna say I've heard murmurs that he's fit. I knew Buendia was fit last week, so that was a positive for me going in. Yeah, Watkins will be there if he's fit. Watkins plays, it'll probably be the team that we've just spoke about. Louise is probably match fit. Thinking about it,
He will be. I think he will be.
he's probably
He might.
against Newcastle. You play Louise, I would say. Personal opinion.
I would play Louise and McGinn. I think that's the two I'd play. I think Nakamba is great for games like Chelsea and Spurs.
You want to dominate.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Newcastle. I think we saw it against West Ham, and we've seen it numerous times. They play Bruce ball. They sort of play this 5-3-2 formation where they really try and stay compact and they try and break. Where they normally have some Maxim and Wilson try and get in behind a.
They look decent at times, I thought, to be honest.
Yeah, they've got a lot of pace. They've got Almiron, they've got Wilson, they've got some Maxim, they've got Hayden breaking from midfield, and then Shelby obviously playing those deep, long balls through.
You can get Shelby.
Yeah, they can be problematic. But I think we've got to be a bit careful on the counter. But
yeah,
they're going to sit. We're going to have all the ball. That's why I think Luis should play. And the key will be, don't give Shelby any time and just try and get at him because he's terrible defensively. And then as much as we can, their fullbacks, I think they'll probably play Richie and.
Christ wasn't the other day.
No,
I know it's Jacob Murphy on the wing.
Yeah, Jacob Murphy. So they've got basically wingers as fullbacks really. And they will try and put when they do break, they'll try and push high. And the key will be then, if I'm hoping Ollie Watkins plays, is try and expose that space behind. Because you've got Bailey and the likes of Watkins hopefully playing. They've got pace. You got Clark and on the left hand side, and I think
Natles played in the middle, didn't it?
Yeah, and you definitely.
I mean, they had that defence in the Championship when we were dicking around with Di Matteo and Bruce in the first season. Those two were in defence.
You can definitely get at them, and if you turn Shelby, then he's terrible defensively. We should be beating Newcastle. There's no, they make no bones about it. They're a bad team managed by an awful manager. We should be beating them. They will be dangerous.
Looks like we should be doing what, but
yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that because we should on a normal given day. But there were so many factors against us that game.
Yeah,
we had so many players missing and players on the bench who weren't fit. It was a first home game back for a newly promoted side with all their fans in the stadium. We've had a terrible preseason. It just was one of those games where it wasn't going to be perfect, and we saw what happened. I think now with our fans back in the stadium with an extra game in them. Obviously, there was a preseason friend. There was a preseason friendly, a friendly behind closed doors as well. Which
Steve Deakins asked about that. Asked for our thoughts on it.
Yeah,
I know Troy always got injured, but I don't say it's been a bad thing because people need fitness. The only way to get fit is by playing.
Yeah, I think Man United played one the other day as well. We've missed so many preseason games because of COVID. They've got to play these games. They've got to get these players match fit. And how else are you going to do that? By otherwise, they can get Traore could get injured in training. You just don't know. It's one of those things, and whether he's injured or not, we don't know. There's been no confirmation of it, but but these players need match sharpness. They need game time, and you need. It makes complete sense to have a friendly. And it was a week before the game. End of the day. So they've hardly had any game time. It completely made sense to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just unfortunate that he got, or if he did get injured potentially, then he's out for a few weeks. But I don't think he would have started anyway. Traore, he obviously was excellent in his cameo off the bench, but I don't think he would have started anyway. So it's not. I don't think it'll be the greatest loss.
Not Bailey on the hour or 70 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not ideal, obviously, but if he's out for 3-4 weeks, then he'll be back soon enough.
Do you think Young will play left back?
I personally would stick with Target. I could see Young playing because Target obviously it depends. I think this week's training will tell a lot. If Target again doesn't look sharp, doesn't look match fit, then they'll probably stick with Young. And I thought actually Young did really well against Saar, but then I think he was helped by Ramsey there as well. He had a bit of support, whereas Target was isolated to some extent, and he's not the quickest fullback, but let's not forget Matt Target was player of the season last year, so he's not a bad player.
He just didn't look. He didn't look.
No.
He didn't look right.
Yeah,
both physically and on the pitch. Like he just didn't look at his optimum fitness to me. He looked really fit last season. I was like, wow, he's done some work in the gym. He didn't look right on Saturday to me. But an extra week, a week between the games is a good thing. Last season it was where you had a game, a lot of midweek games, and not much time to recover from games and things like that. Having the full week, another week of training, I think that would be really good for them. So hopefully we'll see a bit of a change on Saturday.
Yeah, it will be. Don't get me wrong. There's no easy game in the Premier League. It'll be a tough game. Newcastle, they've got some really dangerous players and Wilson and Maxim and Omar and players like that, but we should be beating them. That's it's obvious to say, I think, and we'll have to be careful. So Maxim, you saw what he did against West Ham. He will drop deep. He'll pick those pockets up, and then he'll likes to sort of pick up space in sort of deep areas and turn and then run at players. And he's such a good dribbler. So hard to get the ball off him. The midfield have got to be alert. But I suppose the key for us will be trying to keep hold of the ball and make things happen. And it may be that they score 2, we score 4 type of game. I guess we'll see.
West Ham.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what they'll try and do is in what we saw against West Ham. They'll try and get it out wide, get the fullbacks high up, and try and get crosses in and get bodies in the box. That's what Bruce does. He's always done. That's what he's done for Newcastle as well. And that's what they're trying to do, and try and get people like Hayden in the box, and try and get the other fullback in the box, and that's what we've got to be careful at. And that's what we've been good at. Mings and Konza have been excellent at defending balls into the box. That's what they did so well so often last season. So as long as our players are at it, then I hopefully don't see any issues. But it's all about getting that crowd behind them and make sure the players are all ready. And I think Watkins being there, hopefully he's fit, is going to make a massive difference.
Crowd will be give us a chance. I reckon give us more of a chance. I think the home crowd. I think that will really work to our advantage. On Saturday, quickly then before we shoot, give me a score prediction.
I'm going to go for 3-1 Villa.
I'm going to go 2-1. 2-1 Villa. We might go behind, but I think we'll come back and get it on in front of the whole end. Win 2-1. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to say is going to happen, and I think that does us for this week's The Villa View, the pod, in association with Luke Roper. If you use the code TVV20, you'll get 20% off most things on the Luke Roper website, and it really helps us as a channel as well if you use that code. So if you fancy some Luke Roper, please use that code, and it really helps us out. Thanks to Omar for chatting to me. We'll be back for a post-match pint on Sunday evening, and then another post-match pint after Barrow, I suspect. So there may not be a pod next week, but we'll see what we can do. I've got pods coming out my ears at the moment, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, always good to chat to you, Omar. Thanks for everyone for tuning in as well. Quick shout out to Dean Avery, who's recovering from a little bit of a procedure. So yeah, long-term legacy Villa View watch. I've been watching it since Matt Lynch and myself were sat in our bedrooms doing videos. So yeah, just want to give Baseman Dean, a little shout out. And yeah, that does us. Thanks ever so much for watching. Up the Villa. Enjoy Saturday.
Up the Villa.